5.3b, it's going to be very similar to what we were doing in 5.3a, but now we have one more step that we have to do before we can find our slope and y-intercept. And that step is step number 1 from that first page of notes on 5.3a. Step number 1 was to get y by itself. So if we look at number 1, we have 2x plus y equals 3. To get y by itself, we need to get rid of the 2x. So we want just the y by itself. We've got to start with what's furthest away from the y, so I'm going to subtract that whole 2x term from both sides. So that way it cancels or goes to 0 on this side of my equation. Then I can get y by itself. Over on this side, when I look at my y-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, I always have that x term first, so I like to keep my x terms first to keep it in that form. So when I write my new equation on this side, I have a negative 2x and a positive 3. So now that I have it in slope-intercept form, I'm ready to graph. So the first thing I need to do is identify my slope. My slope is that number in front of x, which is a negative 2, and I want to have it in a fraction, so I have rise over run, so negative 2 over 1. And then my y-intercept is 0, comma b, which is 3. Now I'm going to take this information right here and graph it. So I have 0, comma 3, 1, 2, 3. That means I'm going up 3. And then my slope is a negative 2, 1. So that means I'm going to go down 2 and over 1. And that's my answer for number 1. Okay, so let's look at number 2. We have to first get y by itself. So again, to get y by itself, I got to start with what's furthest away from the y. So I'm going to subtract that positive x from both sides. Now when I do that, I have to be careful because this negative sign here goes with my y. So that's going to stay with the y. On this side, I have a negative x and a positive 2. My x's go to 0. X minus x is 0. Now to get rid of that negative sign, I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 1. When I do that on this side, I get y. Now I have to have a negative x divided by negative 1 and 2 divided by negative 1. I have to divide both those numbers by negative 1. So when I do that, negative x divided by negative 1 is just x. Positive 2 divided by negative 1 is a negative 2. So now I have my equation and I'm ready to graph. I'm going to start with my slope. There's always a 1 out front of that x, so I have 1 over 1 as my slope. My y-intercept is going to be 0, comma negative 2. Now I can go over to my graph, start with my y-intercept first, which is 0, comma negative 2. And then my slope is 1 over 1, so I'm going to go up 1 and over 1. Okay, let's look at number 3. Got 3x plus 4y equals negative 12. Same thing, I'm trying to get y by itself here. So I need to get rid of what's furthest away from y first. And that is my 3x term. I'm going to subtract that whole 3x term from both sides. I get 0 right here. I still have that 4y on my left side. And I'm going to put my x term first. So I have a negative 3x and a negative 12. Then I need to get rid of that 4 in front of y. Remember, this is really 4 times y. So that means I'm going to divide by 4 on both sides to get y by itself. 4 divided by 4 is 1. Now remember, I have negative 3 divided by 4 and negative 12 divided by 4. So that gives me a negative 3 over 4x minus negative 12 divided by 4 is 3. Now I'm ready for my slope and y-intercept. Slope is my number in front of x. Don't forget that negative sign, negative 3/4. And my y-intercept is 0, comma, negative 3. My b is negative 3. Now I can graph 0, negative 3. I'm going to go down 3. Then my slope is negative 3 over 4. So that means I'm going down 3 over 4. Right here. Draw my line and my arrows, and I'm done with number 3. Okay, number 4. I got to get y by itself, so I'm going to start with what's furthest away from y, which would be my negative 2x. Since I have a negative 2x, the inverse of negative 2x would be positive 2x. Don't forget this negative goes with our 5y, so we are going to bring that down. I have a positive 2x and a negative 10 on the right. Then to get rid of my negative 5, I have negative 5 times y, so I'm going to divide both sides by negative 5. I get y equals, we have 2 divided by a negative 5 gives me negative 2/5. And a negative 10 divided by a negative 5 gives me positive 2. I'm going to pull out my slope and my y-intercept. My slope is in front of my x, which is a negative 2/5. And my y-intercept is a positive 2. So that means I'm going up 2. And then my slope says I'm going down 2 and over 5. Down 2 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, we've got 2 more examples. Okay, so this one, number 5, our y is almost by itself. It's on the other side of our equation, and it's almost by itself. So if I want to get y by itself on the left side, when I flip this equation around, 4y equals negative 3x, I can do that because both sides are equal. There's no less than or greater than sign. I can just flip my equation around to get my y on my left. And then to get rid of that 4, I have 4 times y. I'm going to divide both sides by 4. That gives me 1y on this side and negative 3 over 4x on this side. So now my slope is my number in front of x, negative 3 over 4. My y-intercept, there's no number there, so that makes it 0. 0, 0 is my y-intercept. Then I'm going to go down 3, 1, 2, 3, and over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, last example here. I have my y, I'm trying to get by itself, so I'm going to start with what's furthest away from the y, which is that 3x. I have a negative 3x, so I'm going to add it to both sides. That leaves me with 4y on this side. That is 0. Then I have a positive 3x and a positive 8. I have 4 times y on this side, so I'm going to divide by 4 on both sides. 4 divided by 4 is 1y. 3 divided by 4 is 3/4 x, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. Now I can find my slope, which is 3/4, and my y-intercept is 0, +2. When I go to graph that, 0, 2, go up 2, then I'm going to go up 3 this time. 1, 2, 3, up 3, and over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Finally, connect my 2 points with my arrows.